What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Perfectly Blended Podcast, Season 5, Episode 19. Today, we get to talk about unhealthy and healthy expectations in your marriage, and that's coming up
right now.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Perfectly Blended Podcast. This podcast is for blended families, for couples that want to strengthen their marriage and want a brighter future. Perfectly Blended exists to break the stigma of divorce, drop the shame and guilt holding you back, and equip marriages to thrive instead of just survive. We believe all that is possible in this life is based on the power of Jesus Christ and His ability to restore us fully. Let's dive in. What is up, everybody? Welcome to today's show. Listen, today is the first day of summer, and if you're in Michigan, you are celebrating it at 100 degrees, which is unusual for us.
We're not complaining.
No, we're not complaining, but you can see we're kind of reddish because a good friend of ours, their kid had a t-ball game, so we went just before we came on tonight. We went and visited for like an hour at that, and that was warm.
Oh, man. Yeah.
She's like, oh, man.
It was muggy.
Yeah, it was.
It was muggy.
Muggy hot.
Sticky. Yeah.
100 and like all kinds of humidity.
I'd rather have that than winter.
Always. I don't mind 95. Like, it is what it is. It's fine. You can find some shade and then you're comfortable.
Yeah.
I know in the winter it's like, bleh, it's like miserable no matter where you are.
Yeah.
Well, tell us what's on your mind, my love.
I don't know.
You don't know what's on your mind?
Is there supposed to be something on my mind?
I think there's always supposed to be something on your mind at this point in our podcast.
That we're talking about. I don't know.
What's going on?
It was interesting because yesterday I was talking to Josh about my kids.
You need to close the door then. You can't whisper. People aren't going to be able to hear you.
My 20-year-old. You know, and I'm just like, I don't understand why he's so like angry and hateful towards me. And Josh was like, he loves you, babe. And I'm like, his actions don't show it. And Josh was like, I hate to bring up Four Christmases right now.
The movie.
The Four Christmases. He's like, but you know, the dad, when he's on the roof, he was like, I treated her really good. I didn't cheat on her. I never lied to her face. I put a roof over her head. I spoiled her, you know? And of course I started laughing. And he's like, that's how we think.
That's how men think.
That's how men think. You know, we're just big dumb animals and you need to help us out, you know, and have patience with us. And it made me laugh typical of our relationship. You know, I'm upset about something and crying, you know, and just hurt. And he comes in and heals my heart with humor.
That's it? You want to
that could be another thing that we do too. Heal heart with humor.
Oh, make them laugh.
Yeah.
Hey, that's the way to a woman's heart anyway. See how funny that is? Not dad jokes either. Like, women need real humor, not just the dad joke stuff.
He does have a skill though. A lot of people, I'm envious of this because I can tag team off of him. Like once he starts it, that's fine. But he has a true skill that he is funny and comical, and it's never at the expense of other people. Like he's funny. He's not making fun of something.
Yeah, or mean.
He's just funny, and that's a skill. That's a gift.
Yeah, it didn't used to be that way. Okay, let's just be honest. I used to be quite the jerk, but I've learned and grown up in my years. And God has been good and gracious to me. So I always thought too, when I first sobered up, I'm like, and I told Kristy this, I'm like, I will never be funny. Nobody will ever think that I have a sense of humor ever again. And I truly believed that because I always thought that, you know, those things were linked together, which is just, you know, that's addiction, that's sickness. And, you know, when I got on a path of really personally growing and stuff, and then of course, Kristy brings out just the most wonderful parts of me. And I remember laying in bed at night and we would just watch on our old like HTC Evo phones. If you're old enough to know what that even is.
They had a kickstand built in.
We would sit there and we would watch like these comedy skits and stuff on YouTube and stuff and just crack up. And so Kristy has an amazing sense of humor, and that really just warmed my heart. And she brought out the best parts of me, you know, and she always makes me want to be a better person, which always helps too in marriage. So thank you for saying that. But I love being funny, and I love having people laugh and have fun.
Yeah.
So I love that. Okay, so on today's show, we're actually going to talk about healthy versus unhealthy expectations in marriage. Now, maybe you didn't know this, but I saw a statistic recently that said that 45% of divorces say the reason for the divorce is because of unhealthy or unmet unhealthy expectations, which is pretty scary. You know, we get in our minds about what we think things should be like, and we dig in pretty good, especially in second marriages and blended families. We dig in pretty good because we've already had a marriage, so we kind of know everything that we want and don't want now. And that really creates some serious unhealthy expectations in marriage.
Yeah.
So as we dig in today, let's jump right in. So what we're going to do today is we're going to share with you 3 unhealthy, and then we're going to share with you 3 healthy, and we may even have a bonus one in there. So let's kick it off.
We may or may not.
We may or may not. Don't have expectations.
Right.
Lower your expectations. Okay. Number 1, unhealthy expectation for your marriage is your spouse is responsible for your happiness.
It's an unhealthy expectation. He said healthy.
Oh, I did. I'm sorry. Okay.
It's unhealthy.
The unhealthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your spouse is responsible for your happiness.
So this is something that when Josh and I first got together, because I still needed to do some healing, that is an expectation I think that was on him, is whether or not I was happy. It depended on how he acted or he treated me and what he did for me. And I had to learn how to self-soothe to the point where I know how to be happy in my life without being dependent on him, because it's actually unfair to your spouse, because he's not allowed to have a bad day or, be sleep deprived and things like that. I mean, recently when we just got our baby puppy Stella, he went through a month at least where he wasn't getting any sleep and he was not himself for a solid amount of time. And it does weigh on me, if your spouse is not acting like themselves and, they have a shorter fuse and stuff like that. Of course, it weighs on you, but I was still able to live my life and go to work and choose to be happy and not be mad and upset because Josh wasn't able to fill my happy cup, that day. Yeah. I was able to, talk with him about it. I gave him a good amount of time and then finally, brought it up to him like, this is really hard when we have to figure something out because you're just so sleep deprived. It's not your fault that you are like this, but we have to figure something out because this is going on for a long time now and it does affect the family over time. But I wasn't walking around moping and unhappy because Josh wasn't, catering to me.
Yeah, which is super easy to do in any relationship for us to look at and say, first off, the reason I'm miserable right now is because you're not doing something to make me happy. And I think it's easy for us to have an expectation of, what I like to call fingers, not thumbs. It's easy to point at our partner and say, well, you're not doing your job of making me happy. And it's easy for a guy standpoint because we usually tie that to a couple of things. Usually it's sexual or food, right? Or it's, you're not pampering me in a special way that I need. And so because of you're not doing these things, these unmet expectations, you're creating me to be a miserable person, which is completely wrong. Like it's completely off. It's an unhealthy expectation that Kristy has anything to do with my happiness. What?
I'm just trying not to laugh. He said sexual, and it just made me think of. Okay, our pastor has contributed to my anxiety and paranoia because he has done a whole sermon from the pulpit on, if you're married, you need to have a healthy sex life. And he has said that if you let your man go longer than 3 days, they are more likely to cheat. If you go longer than 3 days without, coloring, Yeah. So it's like that has not helped the situation at all.
That's what made me think of it. All the men in the church got together and had a meeting before this. And then as the sermon was intentional. No, I'm just kidding. And I don't even know where he gets those facts from.
I have no idea.
I don't know.
But that's what it made me think of.
That would be a healthy expectation, okay? Because that works out in my favor in that way. But we do. It's easy to make our partner responsible for our happiness. You are a direct. Now, I'm not saying that Kristy made a very good point. Like that month, Was I making the house unbalanced? Of course. Does it make it harder to be home and like, be happy and joyful? Of course. But it doesn't mean that she was waiting for me to make her a happy person. And there's a big difference in that. And I think that's what this really is trying to say. Like, we have to be careful about how we get codependent in our relationship. And we don't have these really unhealthy expectations on our partner to make us a happy whole person.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is really hard. So, okay. So number 2, right? 2 for an unhealthy marriage expectation. Your spouse will never change. Your spouse will never change.
So it is, and that is a huge struggle. Like if you are already in a marriage, right? And let's say you got married and your spouse now, maybe they struggle with addiction, or maybe they don't go to church, even something as simple as that. They don't go to church. And if you truly don't believe that your spouse will change or can change, that is an unhealthy expectation, because you need to be your spouse's biggest supporter and the biggest believer that they can change, they can do it, and encourage them to do what they need to do to become a better person. And when you already are expecting like, they'll never change, that's whatever. Every human being struggles with this, especially if you've been in a marriage. I mean, we have some really close friends that, the spouse struggled for years with alcoholism, and, the one spouse stayed by the side, and now they're sober, and they've been sober for a couple of years now, right? A couple of years?
3
years.
3 years, yeah.
So
hello, Miss Stacy.
So your spouse will change and can change, especially, you put God at the center of it, and you guys are praying and you believe God can change anybody. I mean, God changed me. God changed him.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to believe together, pray apart, pray for each other all the time. But you really have to believe. If you're already just, they'll never change, it's really not setting up your relationship for success, even for yourself.
Yeah, it's super unhealthy. That's such a damning expectation in your relationship, is that your partner either, number one, is going to change in the way that we want them to change, or number 2, they never will change. And automatically what we're doing is we're pre-assuming in our own heart and our own mind that the things are the way that they're going to be. And we're doing God's job is what we're doing in our marriage, and we're not allowing God to grow this relationship. Listen, everybody has a season of life. We all go through seasons of lives. Every single person, no matter who you are, you change to some degree, right? And if I can't be the person, and I should be, right? If I can't be the person that looks at Kristy and says, hey, I have a great expectation for the future, for you, for us, for what's going on. Now she feels like she has an opportunity to grow in a healthy way. Mm-hmm. But the opposite of that is, if I'm like, you'll just never change, you'll just always be this way, she's not going to feel confident about making changes in herself or whatever else is going on. And so that's just such an unhealthy, it's like it pins people in position in an unhealthy way.
Well, I also like how you said, though, or they will change in a way that we want. Mm-hmm. So that's an unhealthy expectation too. When our daughter was coming up in age, and was really, at an age where she could get married, and we were talking to her about, when she gets married, we were like, no one's perfect. Okay. Everyone, especially once you get married and you're living with a person 24/7, there is going to get things that grate on your skin. You're going to annoy each other. You're going to have bad days. That's inevitable. I mean, you're both human, but you have to have non-negotiables. So you can't be like, oh, I don't like someone that drinks all the time, and they do. But once we get married, I'm assuming eventually they'll just stop.
Or I'll do something to make sure they quit.
Yeah. You can't enter into marriage with that expectation. It is unhealthy for you and for them. Yep. A person has to be allowed to be themselves. They have to be allowed to make changes when they need to make changes and when they're ready to make changes. So don't ever expect them to change in the way that you want. Have non-negotiables and don't bend on those.
That's right.
Before you get married.
That's right. Okay, number three for unhealthy expectations is your way is only the right way.
Yeah, this was a hard lesson for Josh and I to learn.
Yes.
Because Josh and I, when we first got together, we're both pretty intelligent people. We're not dumb, okay? Let's just put it that way.
I don't think I'm dumb. Maybe I am dumb.
And we think differently a lot of the time about how to get to said goal. And he would have a way that would work, and I would have a way that would work. And neither one of us would actually be hearing the other person because we knew our way would work. And whatever the other person was saying, it was wrong automatically because we knew our way was right.
Oh.
And it took us a long time and lots of bathroom talks to be able to come to the conclusion that there is often times more than one right way.
Almost every time.
Yes. And so a lot of times once you're willing and open to listen to your spouse and be like, okay, what's going to be the best right way for our family in this moment?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, okay, then we'll try your way or whatever and come up to a compromise, but to both decide on which way is going to be best in that situation and not have a win mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, we're a team.
Because if one loses, you both lose.
That's right.
Like you don't win unless you both win. And if you're keeping score, that means you're on opposite teams. It doesn't mean you're on the same team. So that was a really hard lesson for us.
It is a hard lesson, and we did something in our private Facebook group.
We're stubborn.
Very. We did something in our private Facebook group, which we're going to go live every 2 weeks and kind of talk about, step family issues, blended family issues, second marriage issues, all these things that, our podcasts and all of our content kind of, revolve around. And we talked about something that this speaks directly to. So we talked about parenting and the different parenting styles. And Kristy and I had very different parenting styles when we got together. And we could get real easily stuck in like, this is the way I've always done it. My kids are comfortable with the way that I do it. They know the way that I do it. And then I'm like, my kids know the way that I do it. Kristy's like, I know the way of my kids. And it's easy to say, my way works. Like, we're good. I'm good over here. Like, you just parent your kids the way you want, and I'll just, you parent your kids the way you want. We'll just, we'll do things this way. And that's such an unhealthy expectation. Like, my way's the right way. And what we've learned over time is there was a lot of changes that I needed to make in my own parenting, and Kristy needed to make in her parenting. And we did that because we were willing to have hard conversations and have open-mindedness about this expectation. Like, okay, we care about us and we care about this relationship and we care about this family. And we don't look at it like it's something that's going to last a year. We want it to last forever. So let's drop these expectations and let's see where we can meet in the middle.
Yeah.
Right?
Meet in the middle.
Yes. Whatever that means. Okay. So let's talk about the healthy stuff, right? So there is some healthy expectations you can have in your marriage. And it would be shameful of us to not include that, for the rest of the podcast.
Okay. From Celebrate Recovery. Okay. When you're doing personal inventory, you do what you need to work on. And you also do good things too to keep it balanced.
That's right.
It's important.
Good times. Okay, so a healthy expectation of your marriage is sharing family and household responsibilities.
Yeah. So
What?
It's just funny because I love him. Okay, so much because I don't do that much around the house. And I like it because I would come home and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad. And this is a good lesson for marriages, right? He would be like, babe, you work, well over 40 hours a week. You do enough. It's fine. You don't always have to be doing something. We did find little things around the house that I do. It makes me feel like I contribute, like the laundry.
And that is contributing.
The bathroom trash that I take out. Mm-hmm. I fill up the Q-tip holder.
Yes.
You know, I did take the trash out a couple weeks ago to the end of the road.
You did.
And I don't do that all the time. But then that is something special that I do occasionally, or I can do occasionally. That's important stuff to do too with household responsibilities. Don't fall into like a comfortable thing and never do anything special for one another, because then, it makes things boring that way.
Yeah, but I think, speaking to the point exactly is this is a healthy expectation to have that, Kristy is like, like, you shouldn't do anything around the house. Well, that's unhealthy, right? She knows that she needs to feel like she contributes, and that's a good expectation to do that. She's off in the evening times. It doesn't mean that I'm not still doing stuff in the evening times, right? So we balance each other out well, and we're way cool with that, right? We're awesome with that because we have a healthy expectation on the things that need to be done or get done. We've talked about 1,000 times on here about the bathroom trash, right? We don't have to talk about the bathroom trash. Bathroom trash gets very full. Listen, I'm a Nazi about trash, about anywhere else in the house that needs to go out. except for the basement where the boys stay.
Yeah.
We ain't going there, right? But the bathroom trash will get super, super full. I don't even think about it. It's the weirdest thing. I don't even think to take it out. Kristy always does it. She just always has.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
We've never talked about it either.
We haven't.
We were like well into our relationship, probably like 5 years into our relationship. And there was a couple that we had over here for dinner. And I literally was like, we've never talked about this.
No.
And I'm going to bring it up right now. And I'm like, but we never had a conversation about the Q-tips
No.
or the bathroom trash
No.
or the kitchen trash or anything.
And I use the most of the Q-tips.
We just fell into these things. Like he automatically does certain things, and that's natural, right? Like our eyes see specific things. And so he automatically falls into doing specific things around the house, and the things that he just doesn't think to do, I naturally just slid in and started doing it. I wasn't mad that he didn't do it. I'm like, okay, here's some little things here and there that I can do to contribute, and it's not difficult, and it worked.
But in our situation too, which is rare for some, I would say, we do have one spouse that works full-time and one that does not work full-time. And I think these days, right, these day and ages, it's very rare for that. Most couples both work full-time. Right?
Yeah.
So, and I do work in a full-time way, right? And it's, I kind of lean on the morals of, the stay-at-home moms, like they're underappreciated. I don't feel underappreciated as a stay-at-home dad by any means. I feel like a king. I feel absolutely rotten spoiled. So I want to over-contribute, which is a good thing. And Kristy doesn't have an unhealthy expectation of me to do that. She still wants to contribute. And I told her, if this is something you feel like you want to be part of and this is important, then yes. And I think that's how it should be.
Yeah.
That's really honestly how it should be.
Well, it's still really good too, because we still have one kid in school that needs to be, taken and picked up, dropped off, and things like that. And it's very beneficial for our kids. It's been a huge blessing.
I think massive
for our kids, to have a parent that has been able to stay at home. And we consider that a huge blessing, because in this day and age, a lot of both people do have to work full-time jobs.
Yeah. No, God has blessed us that way, and which has been an awesome thing. And we're able to, have children that I've been able. They're mostly boys. We do have a daughter, but she's much older, and be able to be home. And I was better with those types of things. Kristy is great at a corporate position, and I had never been technically in a real corporate position. I mean, I was a banker for a while, but that was a joke. But so anyway.
But sharing family and household responsibilities, one of the main things that is good about this is sitting down weekly and going over the schedule, finding out what the expectations of the family are, so that you guys can have a game plan for responsibilities.
Schedules,
too.
chores, all these things. Yeah, depending on how old your children are. That is something. And that's one we need to do, and we should do. We should do a whole episode just on our chore chart that we did years ago.
A whole episode.
We should do the whole episode on it.
Wow.
Talk about the whole thing, how we did it, how it came about.
Crazy,
that's crazy.
girl.
But it was mega impactful. Like, we started doing it much earlier on than we didn't even remember.
No, I thought it was like 1 year in, 1 or 2 years in.
And it actually wasn't.
Like within the first 3 or 4 months.
It was.
I know.
We were like, let's get organized. Let's get this thing down. And anyway, so that created a lot of great momentum.
We impressed ourselves with that.
It was pretty impressive. Okay, so number two for healthy expectations, how to create them in your marriage. Showing respect to each other at all times.
This is hard, okay? We're not saying it's easy. It's easier said than done. Because sometimes, Josh and I, it is a healthy expectation to say, we will respect each other. Even when we're angry, you can still communicate in a way that's respectful, not disrespectful.
Amen.
And there has been times that we'll be looking at each other and we're just like, ooh, like we're shaking. Ooh, the whole body is just like vibrating a little bit, but we still have maintained respectful communication.
Healthy body language. Like, there's things that can be very disrespectful.
And it actually has been very beneficial for us personally as individuals for growth too. But to use our words, and be like, what you're saying right now is really offending me or really ticking me off. Like, I am getting very angry about what you're saying. And so we actually have to, verbalize and talk about what specifically the other person is saying that's offending us and why it's offending us, to try to get a deeper level of understanding, So then the other person can say, well, that's not what I meant. That isn't what I meant. And I'm really sorry. Let me try to explain it a different way. But it's really upped our communication level, not just with each other, but in general.
Yeah.
Because we have had to really learn how to communicate through a lot of anger or really hurt feelings. And it helps, you know, in everyday life to be able to learn how to do that. But that's a healthy expectation, is to expect respect,
Yeah.
you know?
And demand it to a certain degree, but you can't demand respect unless you are giving respect. And we truly believe in that. Something that we did, it's I don't want to say it's funny, but it was, you know, kind of, it seems typical in most relationships. Like, we do not hang up on each other. No matter how mad we would get, we don't hang up on each other. Now, we did it a couple times in the beginning, and we were like, no. Because that's just disrespectful. Like, I'm saying what I want to say, and then when I'm done saying what I want to say because I want to hear what you have to say, I'm hanging the phone up. And like, that's just massively disrespectful stuff.
Or when people are like, I didn't hang up. I was like, I am done talking to you. Bye. And then they say, I said bye. I'm like, was the other person done with the conversation? That's hanging up.
I agree. Showing respect is very, very important. It's not just for guys. It's for women too. We have to make sure that we're honoring them with the way that we give them, offer them respect. And there's nothing wrong with having expectation in that.
What about, like, I think showing respect to one another too is to understand that if you are arguing, you don't walk away, you answer your phone, you answer text messages. Like,
absolutely.
It goes both ways. You don't hang up, but you also answer. Like, you don't ignore each other. Like, don't ignore it. Even in the home, you know, couples will be sitting, don't get me wrong, like, we'll be sitting in the same room sometimes in silence because we're like both processing and calming down, but we don't leave. And we've even been like, the other day I said something to him. He hadn't eaten or something. He gets really angry when he hasn't eaten. I get really angry when I don't get sleep. Okay. So thank God that we're different in that.
Thank you, Lord.
So, but we were talking about something and I just looked at him and I was just like, I don't think that you're in the right headspace right now for us to have this conversation. And I wasn't saying that to be disrespectful. And he knows that our relationship now has come to a very safe place. And he was like, no, you're probably right. We need to talk about it later. No, you know, which, because he knows himself enough and he knows that I know him enough. Like, this is going to maybe go south if you're not.
I get real sharp when I haven't eaten. I get very too direct in a negative way. It's not good. So it's not good. And it really doesn't take much for me to get that way without food. Like, I don't know why.
Some people are just like that, babe.
I'm a sensitive male, I guess. But I think it brings up a really good point.
Days without sleep though.
Yeah, I can.
I got one night tops. I'm good. The next day I'm kind of even giddy. But then if I go 2 nights in a row,
people are dying. There's death. There's carnage. There's bloodshed for sure. No, it's sad. But I think, you bring up a really good point about respect. We have to honor our spouses, and we do that by making sure that we don't do the things that are disrespectful, not answering our phones, leaving for the night, walking out, doing all these things. And no. But the expectation is you have to hold your partner accountable of those things too. You need to speak up and say, hey, this is disrespectful what you did. That's the expectation of this relationship. And I think it's easy for us to say, people should and should and should, or should and should and shouldn't. No, we have to speak up. Kristy's like, hey, I think we need to not talk about this right now.
Yeah.
Okay. We have to have this healthy communication on our expectations.
Because if it's going to be an unhealthy conversation, you don't want to have an unhealthy conversation.
No. If it's not beneficial for your marriage or your relationship, then why? It's just bashing at that point, or it's just venting at that point. And I don't want to go too deep in that because it's healthy to vent and, and get those things out. But if that's your only intention always, it just becomes unhealthy.
Yeah.
So number three, the healthy thing to do, an expectation in your marriage, is to speak kind words to and about each other.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a pretty amazing human being. That's what I tell people the majority of the time. It seems like he has ultimate patience, but you do need, that is a healthy expectation to trust, to be able to trust that when you're not with your spouse and they're talking about you to someone else, that they're talking kindly about you or, raising you up with their words. But it also goes both ways, especially for men and women, actually, that if you're with someone else and your spouse isn't around, that you're not talking about another person of the opposite sex in a way that you shouldn't be.
Very true.
I mean, your spouse needs to be able to have faith or trust that you're, when you're talking about your relationship and things like that, that you are talking about each other, you're talking about them, but you're also talking about them in a healthy way. Going to a mentor or an accountability partner and talking about maybe an instance that you and your spouse had, looking for advice how to handle it better, that's one thing.
That's me focused though.
But if you go to a mentor and you're like, hey, this is a fight that we just had and I need some pointers on how to handle it better, that's good. If you are going just to be like, let me tell you how awful my spouse is, and to get people to be like, yeah, girl, yeah, you should withhold sex from him for at least 2 weeks, like
Withhold.
that's unhealthy. So the difference between healthy and unhealthy. And we're not babies here. So It is a healthy expectation to speak kindly to each other.
Yes, to each other.
And about each other.
Yes, which is hard because it's easy to do. Typically, it's easier to do one of the two things, but that's an expectation. Not only are you going to speak kindly to me, but you're also going to make sure that the words that you share about me when I'm not around is not bashing. I can be as mad as I want at Kristy. I'm not going to go tell other people, if she's acting a specific way, like, oh my gosh, my wife is just being such a jerk right now.
Well, he technically could at Celebrate Recovery because no one would be able to say anything anyway.
Very different, right? Very different. But that's group recovery. So, but overall, you're not going out and saying these unkind words about your spouse, or saying,
you shouldn't be in Celebrate Recovery either.
Mean things. Well, I don't.
Okay.
I mean, I can't speak for other people because that's against the rules. But I can say that I don't. So make sure that you're speaking kindly and you're expecting your partner also to be speaking kind words to you. No matter, I know so many people are like, they're so codependent. They're just like, oh, it's fine. It's fine. Like, I know she just gets mad at me and it's fine. No, it's not fine. That's an unhealthy expectation. Like, you have to have a healthy discussion with your spouse and say, look, talking to me in this fashion is not okay. Like, let's talk about why this is not okay. And you should care about me enough to not want to speak to me this way.
Right. And do you want your spouse to become apathetic to your relationship?
Oof. Because that's what will happen.
No, you don't. Right.
Become numb to it.
Yes.
Like, apparently my wife just thinks I'm a complete moron, lazy person. Like, why am I going to accept anything good that she says to me? Like, I'm not accepting any words at that point. Okay. Bonus number 4, right? We have a bonus 4th thing that you can do healthy in your marriage as an expectation, right? Honor each other's dreams and then find a common ground.
You can take the lead on this one.
Okay, so I look at this one as when you come into second marriages, right? When you lead into a second marriage, you have already lived a specific part of your adult life, right? So you have ambitions and you have drive, and you may even be in a career already, and you have dreams and things that you want to bring to fruition. And now you're blending two families together. You have a brand new marriage, you have brand new kids, stepkids, you have all this family unit. Well, your spouse has not been along on this ride where you've gotten to this point. And you guys may have very different ambitions and dreams that you want to achieve. The goal is to expect that. It's okay. Like, you want to go do this and this is the way that you want to be, like without me? Wait a minute. Maybe that's what the dream used to be, but why can't we have a healthy expectation to come to the middle and agree, like, okay, how can we take what I have as a dream for my future and your dream as a future, and how can we blend and mold this stuff together to make us have one continuous thing? And that's what Kristy and I did. She has her own path that she was going on. I had my own path that I was going on. And when we got together, we had to say, hey, how can we bring these things together and do something together to find fruit in this? And that's a good, healthy expectation to have in your relationship.
Yeah, we didn't sit down and say, basically, you have to be very careful with this and have a healthy expectation and have these conversations, because you can become roommates that are living under the same roof and you guys are just living out your individual lives together.
Right.
And it's actually a lot of fun to sit down and talk about each other's dreams and aspirations, and okay, that maybe was it before we got married. What is it now?
Yeah.
Type of thing. And what does yours look like? And what's your expectations 5 years from now? A lot of times we take that for granted. And we just assume because we live with each other that 5 years from now, he is envisioning us being in the same place that I'm envisioning us at.
Mm-hmm.
And unless we talk about that, we're both working towards completely different avenues of our life and not on purpose. So a healthy expectation is to be to honor each other's dreams and to find common ground and to talk about it and to say, hey, where do you see us in 5 years? What do you see us doing? You know, where do you see our family, our kids? And a lot of times you don't talk about like how old are the kids going to be in 5 years? Like we kind of envision our kids like, yeah, we're going in this direction, and we kind of envision our kids at the same age that they are when we're talking about it. And it's like, okay, in 5 years, actually, I'm going to be 47, 48. Ooh. 48. Josh's going to be 51, you know, and
so fun.
Yeah. And our kids are going to be like in their 30s and, you know, mid-20s.
Mid-20s, yeah.
So where do we see ourselves then? Where? And that's fun, actually. If you look at it the right way with the right perspective, it's a healthy, fun conversation.
It is. And
make a vision board. We did a whole podcast on why you should have a vision board party.
Yeah. And have a vision board. You can even do a couple's vision board, which is super powerful. But I think when you get a blended family together, you know, it's have an expectation that, hey, this person's coming with already aspirations of a future. And they didn't know that you were going to be part of it, right? We didn't know that. And so what can we do to have healthy expectations of that and then be able to find a common ground within that? And I think that's, you know, you see so many people get together and someone's already mid-career, right? They're an attorney and they're like, look, this is my goal. I want to make partner and I want to do this. And I was expecting my kids to be this old at this age. And I'm just going to plan on pouring myself 150 hours a week at this point. Now you're remarried. And your spouse now has toddlers that have t-ball games. Like, how's that going to work? You know, how is that going to work?
Right.
And to say, the spouse saying, oh, well, forget it. I don't care. Like, this is what I plan on doing. And you can go to your t-ball game with your kids and I'm going to go do this. That is unhealthy for your marriage.
That's how women end up with the pool man.
That's how. It's a good thing we don't have a pool anymore. We got rid of the pools.
You were my pool man.
Right. Free help. So anyway, healthy versus unhealthy expectations. There are healthy expectations. The goal, though, is to understand the unhealthy ones and make sure that you weed those out. So the healthy expectations, you can have good, solid conversation to help increase your marriage in the right direction. So we want to thank you so much. That's right. Amen. Thank everybody for being here. We want to let you know that if you haven't visited our brand new website, we do have a new website. If you want to check it out, it's at joshandkristy.com. We got more content and stuff coming soon.
Coming soon.
We do.
So fun.
We have some stuff coming down the pipe that we've been working on. We have a live event as well that we're going to be currently working on, trying to get it done before the end of this year.
That's going to be close.
It is close. That's probably in the next 6 to 8 months. So we have a lot coming on. So if you want to stay connected, all you got to do is get on our website, hit us up, and you can join our email list, and we keep everybody updated through that. So we want to thank you so much for being here, and we will look forward to seeing you next Tuesday at 7.
Bye.